Jay and
Jamie with Xpresscreen. We're glad you guys have joined us. We're going to give it a few minutes for some people to join us.
make sure you get a chance to take your time now. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Helps us out so we can continue to produce content that we put out here on YouTube through Xpresscreen and through our resale partners.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got some people who are on now, and then this video will also be recorded, so if you guys need to leave or if you're coming in late, then you can go back to our YouTube channel and rewatch this. So today we are going to be doing a Q&A, so I have put together the top 10 most common screen printing questions that I'm going to ask Jay, who has been in the screen printing business for how many years?
Almost 30 now.
So he's going to answer some of those questions for us, and then we also have a live chat going, so if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll be able to see them, and then we can kind of answer those as we go as well. So the very first question that I have for you, Jay, is what is the standard size screen, and what mesh count should I use?
Okay. Well, two-part question, and it kind of depends on where you're at as well. Here in the United States, the two most popular screens are 20 by 24, which is considered a small frame, and then you have a 23 by 31. And that's kind of been the industry standard for a long time. Other parts of the world, it's a 25 by 36, and there's some other screen size variations as well. That's mainly with conventional. With our system, the main size is 21 by 23 and 22.5 by 31, which covers those sizes as well. Popular screen mesh, that's kind of tough. I would say somewhere between conventional screen printing, 110, 135, 155, because it's an open and porous enough screen that allows ink through, but you can still hold a good amount of detail with it, especially more once you get to the 155. With our thermal screens, it's a little bit different because our screen mesh works different. Our 70 is equivalent to about a 110 to a 135 conventional. Our 120 mesh is going to be equivalent to 155 to 205, and then our 200 mesh is going to be 255 to 305. And out of our mesh, 120 is by far the most popular. We sell probably 80% of our mesh sales is our 120 mesh.
Okay, and on that note, what's the difference, would you say, between conventional mesh and then the mesh that we use?
Well, the thread diameter and the thread count is the same, speaking, when you're talking about the thread counts. It's the fact that instead of emulsion, we're using a PET coating, a PET coating over the back of the screen. And what's nice about that is with conventional screen printing, you're hoping and praying that a halftone dot falls onto a line of thread. Up to a certain point, our technology doesn't care whether it does. So you can get much higher halftone counts on a much lower mesh count. For instance, with our 70 mesh, you can easily get 50 lines per inch. And you can't remotely do that with conventional screen printing. With our 120, it's about 60 lines per inch. And with our 200 mesh, you're easily at 75 lines per inch. Okay,
awesome. All right, so this is a pretty common question that a lot of people ask who are just getting into the business of screen printing, and it is screen printing difficult, and is it messy?
Well, another two-part question. So, is it difficult? And I'll start with that one first. There is a learning curve, especially on the conventional side, learning how to use emulsion, and that's one of the main things. First of all, you have to dedicate quite a bit of your shop space to. Because you're going to need a dark room, you're going to need a washout sink, you're going to need a knockout booth, and those things take up a bit of space, and they're not hard to learn really. The screen burning a good screen, that is a bit of a learning curve, and if you let your emulsion kind of get a little bit older, then those numbers change. So there's a bit of a learning curve with that too as well. With our method, with the Reso dry thermal method, it's push a button and right. You get results. So it's certainly there's not as much of a learning curve with ours as there is with conventional. Is it messy? Well, yeah, especially conventional. It's again, you're going to be using a ton of water. and you've got to spray the screens out basically 3 times in their life cycle. So you're going to have it once in the knockout of your stencil, or your image area, and then once you're knocking it out to take the emulsion out of it. So there's a lot of room you have to use a lot of chemicals. It's a lot of effort to clean those. And with ours, you simply cut the screen out and start back over again. It's only 6 minutes.
Awesome. All right. And how much does it cost to get started in screen printing?
Well, if you're a DIYer and you're doing conventional, you can get started pretty cheap. My first shop was a parking lot light is what I used to burn my screens with. These are the old days when people were still using quartz and metal halide, which now the technology has improved to LEDs. So if you kind of build your own dark room and build some of your own equipment, then it's not very expensive to get into. From an initial cost point of view, how much is your time worth? It's a lot of labor. So you have to weigh those things out. With a typical, say, new business package, where you're going to have a press, dryer, flash cure, everything in a box to do T-shirts with, I would say conventionally you'll probably be under $7,000, $8,000. With our system, like with the Goka Pro 100, you're under $15,000. And to justify the difference in price is your time.
Right.
This is 5 to 6 minute screens as opposed to putting and waiting on those to dry, and then the whole process that you have to go to. A lot of people don't take in the other variables too of you're going to have to make film positives and the electricity that you use and the water that you use.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And I'm also going to say, now that we've got some people watching, if you guys have any questions as we go through this Q&A, please put them in the chat, and I can see them here, so I'll be able to address those as we go as well. All right. Can screen printing reproduce tones and photographs?
Well, it certainly can. I kind of alluded to it a minute ago. It depends on how so screen printing is definitely a garbage in, garbage out type system. If you've got really good artwork to start off with, really high resolution, then that's going to produce a much better screen for you. So number one, you got to start off with good artwork. You can't take a photograph of a picture of you and your brother taken with a Polaroid in 1976 and expect great results out of it, because it's not going to happen. And you always need to use the original raw file whenever possible, because it's going to have the most detail in the image. With conventional screen printing, for you to have a good mesh count, the rule of thumb is you multiply your mesh count or your lines per inch by 4.5, and that will give you the mesh count that you need to hold that halftone. So for instance, if you wanted a pretty small dot, 60 lines per inch, that's a good dot to put on, a size dot to put on a shirt. You would need 60 times 4.5, 246. So at least a 255 screen up to a 305 screen in that area to hold it. And it's going to require a little bit of patience to do. Halftones are not that easy, and as I alluded to before, you might rinse a few out if you're not careful, if they don't fall exactly onto the lines of fabric. But again, with our system, it's pull it in, and the only thing you have to worry about is dot gain at that point. And that's kind of, I'll go ahead and add that in. Whatever you're looking at on your computer when you go to screen print is not how it's going to screen print, especially using black ink. You're going to print up to 40% darker. In most instances, it's about 15 to 20% darker. Because what happens is, whether it's conventional or our dry thermal method, when you burn that hole and you mash black ink through it, because black ink is going to be a thinner ink, it's going to spread. And unless you have some type of software that will choke that dot, you're actually going to need to lighten the image area up before you burn the screen to get the intended results that you want at the end. Usually I'm going to either lighten it up 10 to 25%, or if you can turn the gamma up 2.5 to 3, and that will also compensate without losing the contrast.
Awesome. All right. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but this question is, how much space is required for a screen printing shop?
Well, it depends on how much equipment you want to have in the shop. Even with a DIYer, somebody doing it themselves, if you're going to build your own washout sink and knockout booth and those type of things, I mean, I think the very minimum is going to be about 800 square foot. I would say a lot further than that, because, and when I mean, I don't mean cube foot, I mean flat area, because of all the equipment that you're going to have, it just takes up a lot of space. With our setup, because we eliminate every single aspect of conventional screen making, and it's all contained in a smaller area, such as one of the units I have here, and all you need is a small screen making table. All of ours can be run in a 10-foot by 10-foot area, and that's the press, the dryer, and the exposure unit. So it's you know, it just depends on which direction that you want to go with it. Again, ours is a whole lot more space efficient.
What would you say would be the least amount of space that you could go off of in our dry thermal systems way?
It kind of depends on your production. So we've got some smaller systems like the MyScreen that is more designed for, say, the Etsy customer in mind and small production. This tabletop that we have in front of us would suffice, because at that point you need either a flash or a press to cure it with. The MyScreen is 2 inches by 10 inches, a place to assemble the frame, and then a small craft press, similar to ones that we sell. You could fit all of that onto a 3 by 4 foot table and be able to produce a good T-shirt.
Awesome. All right. This is a question that we get a lot as well. What type of paint is used in screen printing?
I always love hearing the word paint.
I know.
So when you get into screen printing, never call it paint, call it ink. But we hear it all the time, especially at shows, especially people who are not familiar with it and thinking about getting into it, they'll call it paint. But it is ink, and the main types of ink can be broken up into just a few categories. The old standard faithful plastisol that's been around for I don't know how long has been the faithful product that most everybody has used. And the reason being is you do get very consistent results with it. For the most part, no matter what manufacturer you buy from, you're going to get consistent quality of the ink and color of the ink each and every time. It wasn't that way 30 years ago, but it is now. And the temperature that it cures at has come down a little bit, but it's a reasonable ink. It's very inexpensive. Plastisol ink is generally 5 cents an impression, so it's always cheaper production-wise than vinyl or just about any other type of printing method. So the main categories, again, plastisol, the old faithful. You also have water-based inks, and to throw in that family, discharge inks as well, because they're both water-based. They're making a huge move into the market and have been for a number of years now, because they have a superior feel to them.
That was the original screen printing ink, wasn't it?
Inks were the original screen printing inks a long time ago. And the other inks that you can use are not used very much. There are some types of solvent-based inks which usually have a bit of an odor to them. I'd never recommend for screen printing on a T-shirt. And so there's your main types of inks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is a question that we get a lot as well for those who are trying to do heat transfers or have worked with vinyl and they're wanting to get into screen printing. Which is better, screen printing or heat transfers?
Okay. Well, and it kind of depends, because when somebody says heat transfer, that can be screen printer transfer as well. There's a certain time and a place for both of those. If you have a repeat customer, and you have a slow season and a busy season at your shop, it's not bad to screen print transfers and put them up on the shelf, because they can just hang out there,
Right.
until you're ready to use it, and then you can put them on demand. I have told a number of customers in my shop, I quit direct screen printing on sweatshirts for the last 5 years I owned my shop. I found it was less expensive for me to screen print transfers, no matter how many colors it was, because I could get a really good product with less ink on it and really less labor and less wear and tear on my body of trying to push ink down into a sweatshirt. And I would screen print transfers for all of my sweatshirts, because if you screw up one sweatshirt, on your order, and it's not a very big order, you're eating into profit really quickly. So I would just screen print my transfers. And if I screwed up a transfer, I got 20 cents worth of ink and 15 cents worth of transfer, and dust. And so it's just not, it didn't hurt me at that point. And then that way I could just transfer them, because when you do a transfer onto a garment like that, a transfer literally sits on top. It's not driven into the garment. So yeah, will it last, the printability last as long? Probably not quite as long, but it still is plastisol ink, and if it is put on there correctly, it will last a long time. So to answer your question, now I think there's a time and a place.
Right.
You have to figure out what yours look like as to whether which makes more sense for you to do.
Okay. Awesome. How does the ink dry on the shirt, and how long does it last?
Okay. So we'll get back to, that kind of goes back to 2 questions ago. So with plastisol ink, it is I'm gonna catch some flack for this, but it is time and temperature. I don't care what anybody says. A lot of people think it's gonna, well, when it reaches 340 that it's gonna cure. That, and that is true, but depending on how many layers of ink you put down there, and if you flashed it, that flash is gonna create an insulation, and that insulation is going to demand that you run those longer, not hotter, but longer through the dryer. So how long? If you do a single stroke of most of the standard black inks that's out there on the market, they'll cure pretty doggone quick, probably within 25 to 35 seconds. I don't recommend you going that side. I recommend you going a little bit longer, but they'll probably cure that quickly in a conventional infrared dryer. If you are doing a white ink or a thick yellow ink, gold max opaque type ink, and you put down 2 layers and you flash it and you put down 2 more layers, you now have 4 layers of ink. And when you flashed it, you've insulated that bottom layer of ink. So therefore, when you put it in the dryer, what would be I would say minute and 15, a minute and 20 seconds at that point. You might get away with a little less, but I wouldn't want a chance to wash out on it. I would rather go ahead. The guy that used to work here, when people would ask how long for me to cure ink on a shirt, and he would say as hot as you can, as long as you can, and he's absolutely right. You're not going to overcure plastisol. You can't. You can certainly singe a shirt and burn a shirt, but you're not going to overcure plastisol. With water-based inks, it requires a convection oven. It's got to have some air moving around in it. Now I can dry to the touch roughly in a regular IRR infrared type dryer, but the problem is for the settability of it, to be able to be wash resistant, you're going to have either more air being pushed around in there, or you need to let it have a cure time or air time outside the dryer as well. So you set them out in your shop or whatever and wait. And that goes the same for discharge as well.
This is another question that we get, and we have some videos on our YouTube channel about this as well. How many colors can you print on a shirt?
That is unlimited as to how many you can print onto a shirt. It depends on how many heads you have on your press. So the most common presses are going to be for manual, are going to be a 4-color and a 6-color. Always, this is an important thing to keep in mind. When you're printing on a dark garment, you've just lost one head on your press. So if you have a 4-color, you now have a 3-color. If you have a 6-color, you now have a 5-color, because most likely you're going to underbase with a white ink. And so once you underbase, you now have your colors to print. So now you're going to have 3-color. You can print as many as many colors as heads you have on the press. And we've talked about this before. When you have when people ask me what press should they buy, I usually encourage a 6-color to start off with. And the reason being is for that, I've never had anybody who bought a 6-color from us and said, wow, I wish I'd have bought a 4. But I've had plenty of people who bought a 4 and said, I wish I'd have bought a 6. So you're better off. It's never a lot more money. It's very minimal to go ahead and get the 6-color to start off with. I will say this, when you are starting off printing, if you're a new screen printer and you're watching this, please do me 2 favors. Number 1, start off with black ink and not white ink. And number 2, start off with single color jobs on T-shirts, not on sweatshirts. And you'll help yourself out a lot as you're learning your squeegee stroke. It'll make your learning curve so much easier if you start off like that.
Absolutely. All right, this is the last question, and it's where can I go to purchase screen printing supplies?
Well, we certainly sell a lot of screen print supplies, and even though we sell the dry thermal systems and the mesh and everything that goes with it, everything else is conventional screen printing. So the inks and squeegees and all that and tapes, they're all conventional. So you certainly can purchase from us as well. We sell supplies from squeegees, inks, ink scoops, you name it. I mean, we have it. And we also sell conventionals as well. We sell emulsion and stripper and that type of thing. We prefer that you take a look at our dry thermal method and take a look at it first. And of course, equipment-wise, we sell a full line of RISO exposure equipment. We do sell conventional equipment as well, and we sell automatic bolts. So we've pretty much got you covered for whatever you might need.
Awesome. All right. Well, that is our top 10 questions. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this will also be recorded and posted onto our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and watch it, it'll be there for you as well. We also have a bunch of other videos, tutorials that you can follow as well if you're new to screen printing, or if you have a question, we can probably answer it on one of our videos. So if you have any other questions, or if you want to know more about our system and what we do, first of all, go ahead and make sure that you like this video and you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get more content from us, and also go ahead and follow us on our social media. So we have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we also have TikTok that we just added, and it's all under Xpresscreen, and it's Xpresscreen. So that if you search Xpresscreen, and you should be able to find us. And if you want to visit our website, you can as well. It's just www.xpresscreen.com. You have anything else that you want to add?
I don't think I have anything else at this time. We appreciate you dropping by and taking the time to talk with us. If you're watching this video later on and you have some questions, feel free to post in. We'd be happy to answer them as well. You can reach us here at the office if you'd like to call in at 1-800-597-9530. Also, you can send questions in at info@xpresscreen.com. If you have any questions about the dry thermal system that we sell, we'd be happy to answer those with you as well. And as Jamie was saying, we've got quite an expansive YouTube channel, so feel free to poke around and take a look at stuff. And as she said before, make sure to click like, make sure to click subscribe. This is how we get in a position to be able to do events like this.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.